Michigan Governor Whitmer blames Trump for the kidnapping plot. Biden won't say if he'll pack the courts, and get ready. You could be a sexy hand sanitizer for Halloween. We've got that and much more coming up, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Happy Friday. I'm Hillary Kennedy. I'm filling in for Sarah Gonzalez while she's enjoying her maternity leave. And with me today, two of the most fun people I know, Mr. Eric July, host of For Canon's Sake. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
And Kes Schaefer, the host of Crocs On. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so this has just been a crazy news cycle this week. And one of the stories that we talked about yesterday, if you missed it, go back and watch. But Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she held a press conference yesterday after it was revealed that federal authorities arrested several men allegedly involved in a plot to kidnap her and overthrow the state government. So she took this opportunity to accuse President Donald Trump of being complicit with hate groups, such as the suspects accused of plotting to abduct her. And we have a clip of what she said.
Just last week, the President of the United States stood before the American people and refused to condemn white supremacists and hate groups like these two Michigan militia groups. Stand back and stand by, he told them. Stand back and stand by. Hate groups heard the president's words not as a rebuke, but as a rallying cry, as a call to action. When our leaders speak, their words matter. They carry weight. When our leaders meet with, encourage, or fraternize with domestic terrorists, they legitimize their actions.
So like I said, in case you missed the story yesterday or you didn't hear all the details, they arrested 16 people earlier in the day yesterday who were allegedly involved in conspiring to kidnap Whitmer at her vacation home. They'd even inspected the underside of a highway bridge for places to seat an explosive in order to distract the police while carrying out their plan. They allegedly discussed using a taser to use during the abduction. So first, Whitmer responded by expressing her gratitude toward law enforcement for stopping the plot, but then that's when she took aim at Trump. Now, according to the Chicago Tribune, there's no indication the criminals that were arrested, or the accused criminals, were inspired by Trump. They haven't even said whether the men were angry about Whitmer's coronavirus orders. That's what a lot of people were assuming that they were upset about. But why does Trump get the blame for this just right off the bat?
Yeah, this was bizarre. First of all, she just lying through her teeth. So, I mean, just obviously she's reading from a prompter, but to be lying like that, not even just about the whole white supremacy or president failing to condemn them or tell them to stand by. He wasn't specifically talking about them. He was referring more to the Proud Boys in that regards. But nonetheless, like you mentioned, there's no evidence there that points to Trump had anything to do. In fact, the evidence actually points to the contrary. When you consider one of them, you've seen videos going around when, he was saying that he hated Trump. He called Trump a tyrant. And he had also, he had an anarchist flag. And let me set the record straight, because I know I got mentions of this, like while I condemn him, because I'm an anarcho-capitalist, and because he seemed to be the anarchist that was necessarily not a leftist. People looked at our group like, hey, was he one of us? Like, no, I'd never heard of this guy. Didn't know anything about that group. But I know that particular guy, I don't think he was like an anarcho-capitalist or anything like that. And the other guys, they certainly didn't seem to be like just advocates of like Trump, you know what I mean? Like Trump supporters. So that's something that they're just completely making up. There's not even anything that indicates other than, okay, well, they maybe didn't like the governor. That was about it. And they just wanted to overthrow her. Mm-hmm. I guess that seems to be all the evidence to where the evidence is pointing to. It has nothing to do with, let's say, your typical, let's say, hate group in which they are suggesting that they are white supremacists, which is what she had said. There's no indication of that right now. Again, we have more evidence to the contrary when you see that they hated Trump. So to say they were inspired by Trump, while certainly one in the videos are floating around saying the complete opposite, well, that doesn't really make any sense. But it just goes to show that these guys have narratives that they are going to cling to, and it doesn't matter if they have to lie to get there.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Whitmer should have I mean, she certainly should have thanked law enforcement, but do you think she should have waited to make any other statements about who she thought was inspiring them or responsible until all the facts had come out?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And when I was reading this story and watching the video you mentioned of the guy talking like, oh, Trump's not your friend and we hate Trump, and you're going, I was reading this and going, it totally reminded me of a few years ago with the Christchurch shooting. And they immediately, with that guy, were like, oh, inspired by Candace Owens and Trump and da-da. And then his manifesto comes out and you go, wait, I'm so sorry. When did you make those connections that this is where it was inspired? And so it's just ridiculous. It's so obvious that it's scripted and planned and stuff like that. There's every attack. And I think this is all coming from when they go, oh, Trump didn't condemn the white supremacists and stand back and stand by. Well, when I hear stand back and stand by, I hear stand back.
Yeah, like don't do anything.
Plant a bomb under the bridge and go kidnap this chick. Like, no, what are you talking about?
I agree totally. Well, you know, President Trump, he's not going to be silent when someone says the kinds of things that Governor Whitmer says. So he fired back after she accused him of being complicit with white supremacists and militias, like the one that allegedly plotted to kidnap her and attack the government. So the president, he took to his social media account on Thursday and he said, Governor Whitmer of Michigan has done a terrible job. She locked down her state for everyone except her husband's boating activities. The federal government provided tremendous help to the great people of Michigan. My Justice Department and federal law enforcement announced today that they foiled a dangerous plot against the governor of Michigan. And rather than say thank you, she calls me a white supremacist, while Biden and the Democrats refuse to condemn Antifa, anarchists, looters, and mobs that burn down Democrat-run cities. So he did follow up with, so that there's not any question about what he condemns or doesn't condemn. He says, I do not tolerate any extreme violence. Defending all Americans, even those who oppose and attack me, is what I will always do as your president. He said, Governor Whitmer, open up your state, open up your schools, and open up your churches. So she responded by saying hate groups heard his words, not as a rebuke, but as a rallying cry.
Yeah, I still don't understand how she made that connection, aside from, again, she had a particular end game already in mind. Her mind seemed to be made up. Didn't matter, the evidence came out, she didn't need to know any of that. She was going to make that connection. And this is the realm of politics and where we're at now, unfortunately. And that everybody has their own truth, no matter if it's truth or not. And they have a vision in which they see the world. And no matter if it's true, they have to get there. And if they have to lie, if they have to make things up, and unfortunately, if they have to drag your name through the mud in order to get there, to present themselves as, let's say, a victim of white supremacy or hate groups or what have you, that's exactly what they're going to do. And what it does is, as it has historically, is it cheapens that concept. Now, of course, I don't believe white supremacists or white supremacy is anywhere near prominent as these fools go around gallivanting around the internet, acting as if it is, walking around every corner and there's some guy in a white hood ready to attack me or something. Of course, that's not the way that the world is. But in the existence of those particular aspects, when they say things like this, they are the crying wolf. And when it does happen, again, it cheapens that particular thing. White supremacy, or people that actually are advocates of, there's 4 of them that exist in the world maybe, but they're very, very bad people. And we should leave that concept to, identifying those particular people, not just trying to apply it willy-nilly because they want to paint the president as a white supremacist or a supporter of white supremacists, white supremacy. And again, it just cheapens the whole concept.
Well, I want to get your take on this, but we have one more clip of Governor Whitmer that I want you to watch before you do.
Absolutely, President Trump is egging them on. When the president started making this personal and attacking me and a few other governors, like Jay Inslee, for instance, we saw a complete change in the political rhetoric that is happening on the ground. Up until then, my legislature was supporting my emergency orders. We were working very well together. When that happened, they wouldn't extend an emergency order. They started taking me to court, started introducing legislation to take the powers of the governor away. They're trying to issue all sorts of measures to hem me in and keep me from doing what I need to do to protect people. Oh, I'm not going to be bullied into making decisions that are going to cost people's lives. It's just not going to happen. So, but when the president eggs people on, it has an impact. this rhetoric that has come consistently out of this White House has engendered a hateful environment that has emboldened people's worst tendencies. Death threats against me, people putting likeness of me in a noose, for instance. This is the kind of baloney that I've had to deal with. And yet I'm not going to be dissuaded from following the best science and the best minds in medicine.
Speaking of baloney, what do you think, Kez?
Have you guys ever watched The Bachelor?
Yes.
And you know how there's like a million girls and then they always go to The Bachelor and they're like, she is like bullying me and then the Bachelor's like, okay, like I need to go and like talk to these. This is what I feel like I'm watching The Bachelor, where all these girls are like, there's a noose and I'm being bullied and I will not tolerate that. Like, what? Are you a grown woman? And I feel like it's always women just, I will tame my mouth, but they're always saying things. And I just feel it's ridiculous. And I wanted to say before, I feel like this whole thing, like 100%, it was Trump. He, did this. I feel like the left are so overreacting and dramatizing things that happen. Like Kamala Harris, every time, what's his face? Pence would say something. She goes, I am speaking. Can I finish?
Very dramatic.
Totally exaggerates his interruption. And I feel like this is the same thing. They're totally over exaggerating it. And I think it's because if you want to look at like real destruction and anarchy and all this stuff that's going on, we can look at Antifa and BLM, who are currently burning down the cities and now moving into the suburbs and doing all this sort of stuff. But because that is like just so huge, to make this little thing like, oh, someone tried to kidnap me, so huge, you've got to make it this huge. Trump is telling, rallying up the troops to come, make it like this huge big deal when it's really not. And it also has nothing to do with Trump.
Yeah.
Well, and so you mentioned troops. So that's a really good segue to something about Trump that I thought was a really interesting story. President Trump says the remaining U.S. troops in Afghanistan should be home by Christmas, which would mark the end of a nearly 20-year war. It peaked at 100,000 troops under the Obama administration. It's since been reduced to 8,600 troops during the Trump administration. He's saying we should have a small remaining number of our brave men and women serving in Afghanistan home by Christmas. So the withdrawal is the result of a historic agreement between the U.S. and Afghanistan that they struck in February when the U.S. offered to withdraw all troops from the country by May 2021 in exchange for counterterrorism guarantees from the Taliban. Now, what I think is so interesting about this is some of the troops that have been deployed to Afghanistan are now seeing their own sons and daughters being deployed there too. This has been going on that long. There's a couple of fathers and sons that are both stationed over there together now, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. That's been going on this long. Do you think this decision will help Trump?
Well, it should. I mean, if he had did that would have been the one thing that, of course, libertarians like myself were hoping that he had done. He had talked a great game, not even just when he was running. I mean, he had been talking about this, even praising, some of the concepts like Ron Paul when he had been telling these fools for, 2008, 2012, that, they needed to get out long ago. So that was certainly one way that he could have got support of the people that were certainly in the middle. Because that's a big thing. A lot of people care about that stuff. Like you mentioned, you have fathers and sons over there at the same time. 20 years ago, I was 10. Right.
I was going on that long. Yeah.
That's how long that this has been, been going down. But of course, it should get him some support, but he has to do it. Obama talked a great game with that whole deal as well, acting as if he was going to, end wars and bring home the troops. And then we found out he bombed more countries than Bush did. So hopefully he sticks to that and another places abroad. This whole world police thing is certainly it's like the pain, in America when you consider that. Obviously, it radicalizes other concepts. I don't want to sit here and go all day long about these war efforts of America, but absolutely they need to get out of there.
Yeah. Well, we're hoping and praying that they do, because I know there's a lot of families that would like to have their loved ones back for the holidays. All right, we've got to go to break, but before we do, I want to thank our sponsor, Gabby, because when you've had the same car insurance or homeowners insurance for years, you kind of get trapped into paying your premiums and then not thinking about it. And that makes it really easy to overpay and not even realize it. Stop overpaying for car and homeowners insurance. See about getting a lower rate for the exact same coverage you already have, thanks to Gabby. Gabby takes the pain out of shopping for insurance by giving you an apples-to-apples comparison of your current coverage with 40 of the top insurance providers like Progressive or Nationwide and Travelers. You just link your current insurance account, and in just minutes, you'll be able to see quotes for the exact same coverage you currently have. Gabby customers save $825 per year on average, and if they can't find you savings like they did for me, they'll let you know so you can relax knowing that you already have the best rate out there. And they will never sell your info, so no annoying spam or robocalls, thank goodness. So it's totally free to check your rate, and there is no obligation. Take a few minutes right now and stop overpaying on your car and your home insurance. Go to Gabi.com/why. That's GABI.com/why. Gabi.com/why. We'll be back in just a minute. Tacoma, Washington saw some major action this week when a black motorist was caught on video chewing out a large group of Black Lives Matter protesters who were blocking a street on Thursday. So we have a clip of it, and the clip initially shows the motorist. He's the one wearing a red shirt, a dark baseball cap. He's standing next to the driver's side of a blue pickup truck at an intersection that the protesters appear to have blocked. The protesters are yelling at him, and he is yelling right back. Take a listen.
About 30.
So I know it's kind of hard to understand a lot of what's being said there. It appears that the motorist is telling protesters that they are having a negative impact on the Black lives they supposedly care about, and he's shouting, "I'm blacker than you."
Yeah. That's a good one. No, it's no, I almost made a comment on it. I'm gonna save it. I can't do this on this show. Let me just say that it does seem to be, like, I know he was talking to that girl that was yelling at him. More fairer skinned, let's say, black folks that seem to be. It's almost like a projection. They may be mixed. As you can see, the chick that's kind of with the megaphone is, and the one in front is like, because he's like my color, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't confuse us for being black. Right. And it seems like these guys that are a lot more fairer skinned black, they're probably mixed. Nothing wrong with that. You just don't know what color they are if you saw them from about 10 feet out. And they seem to be yelling the hardest. They could probably pass for white in the 30s, yelling the most about this. But on a serious note, inconveniencing other people, including black people, is not a way to get support for your cause, which is what this is. And I just don't think that these groups realize how many people they're pushing away from this cause. You see a lot of polls that have changed. They were in support of Black Lives Matter, and then those percentage points are trending down. It's because people are seeing things like that. You're inconveniencing people that are innocent. You are destroying people's businesses, places they work. You're not just taking it to the rich folk. These people don't have jobs anymore. And then, as you can see now, they're going to residential areas. People don't want to be associated with that. So the man is completely correct that, this is, I'm black, obviously, you're inconveniencing me. How are you helping me by getting in the way of vehicles that are trying to, get to the other side of that road? How are you helping black lives by doing that and just screaming random slogans and what have you? But this is just not a way to get people to support your cause.
Yeah.
What do you think we should do when Black Lives Matter is on our streets, though? I mean, what is the appropriate way to respond when because, you're right, they are putting all lives, but also other black lives at risk when they're blocking those intersections. Ambulances are trying to get to hospitals. People are trying to get to work. People are trying to get to their kids. It is a huge inconvenience and sometimes incredibly unsafe. What is the right response?
You can't reason with these types. I understand he's getting out trying to look, just almost like he wants to shake their shoulders, wake up and get it. But it's tough because these people didn't get to their positions by way of any reason or logic or what have you. They got there by way of emotion.
Yeah.
So it's nearly impossible to reason with, and this is why you don't let it manifest itself as it has. You've seen all these corporations, all these brands, all these organizations have tried to give leeway to these groups, and that was always a mistake, because now you're seeing that the insane people have taken over the asylum. And I don't know the actual answer, but you have to push it back where it stands. You can't even be flimsy with it. No, stop.
Right. Well, he definitely let him know what was up, which I admire him, because he yelled back at them so much that they finally told him, just get in your truck and go. They were ready to just get him out of there, which I thought was interesting. All right. So I also, because like we talked about, how do you respond? Do you arm yourself more? And it sounds like a lot of people, that is the choice they're making. Gun-owning Americans, they're purchasing additional firearms in response, mainly to the violent Black Lives Matter protests that have taken place in a lot of cities and communities across the country in recent months. A Rasmussen survey published this week found that 22% of Americans who already have a gun in their household have added another since the start of the protests, and that a large majority of them do feel safer having done that. 43% of those surveyed told the polling group they or someone in their household owns a gun. Slightly over half, 54% of those adults who live in a gun-owning household said they feel safer with one. 90% of them said they feel safer. I would agree with that. They also said one of the groups that's the fastest growing as far as adding more firearms in their homes are minority groups. So do you think this means people are paying attention? And really starting to think like, I've got to do something to protect myself and my family.
For sure. It's a very, very common conversation in my house with my husband, looking at houses that are really far away from everybody, looking at how we can get a gun and things like that. And growing up in Australia, we got our guns taken off us years and years ago. So I even remember when I first come to America and someone's like, oh, hey, I have a gun, do you want to try? Even holding it, I was like, ooh, this is scary. I'm so afraid of guns. And now I'm like, someone needs to teach me how to shoot. I've shot a gun a couple times. I'm really hopeless at it, but I feel afraid in my own house.
Well, and your husband does a lot of boots on the ground reporting for us in the middle of a lot of these riots and protests. Has he been encountering more people on the streets that are carrying guns, that are investing in that?
Yeah, there was a video, I think it was in Kenosha when Kenosha was hitting off. And there's actually a video that went viral where a young man was mucking about and put a gun in his face and was like, oh, bro, but it fired, but it was like a blank shot or whatever. And I'm going, I can't, there are people out there with guns and knives and bricks. You don't really even need a gun to cause as much damage as these people are doing. But even when we look at Carl Rittenhouse, it's thank goodness this guy had a gun, because there was a big old mob out to kill him.
Yeah, one had a gun on him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I don't know what the rules are about traveling around the states with a gun. I'm not so familiar with it, but we certainly talk about it all the time about getting a gun and how he can have security or safety, because it is a big concern.
Well, it says this year has been a record-breaking year for gun sales. And despite continued calls for gun control and warnings about the danger of firearms from Democratic politicians, the numbers, they prove that masses of Americans now want to have firearms to protect themselves.
When you see the world around you going in flames, and it seems to come closer to home, and I was calling this when the post George Floyd and all of this sort of broke out, this stuff is going to get closer to home. It gets to the suburbs. And we saw this happening over the past couple of days, where people were having rocks thrown at their house and stuff like that. I always say, you want to have it. Rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Absolutely.
And of course, in my household, we don't have that issue. We got several laying around, probably in every room, so I don't get caught slipping. And of course, everywhere that I go, I make sure I keep it on me. So, but it's a reality that a lot of people it's setting in for, even people that are traditionally, let's say, more leftist, and they're buying guns. Definitely in California, seeing why people like me say all gun laws are infringements for that exact reason, because they're saying, oh, wait a minute, this is getting closer to home. I have to wait 10 days before I can get this gun. In certain areas, obviously, they're not in places like Texas, but they have to worry about that. And it's not just folks that are on the other side. It's folks that are on the left as well that are seeing this, and they're wanting to get equipped. I've had so many people, me being in the metalcore industry, I'm surrounded by a bunch of leftists, metalcore and hardcore music industry, and people that have been reaching out to me saying, man, I see you, your band, we're the few advocates of gun rights that are in this scene. And people have been asking me, reaching out, like, what do I need to do in order to go about, being able to shoot or what have you and going to get some practice. This is a reality that's setting in for a lot of people. And I'm glad that people are understanding the importance of it.
I agree. People say, I don't need an umbrella until it rains. And all of a sudden. All right, we're going to break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about Joe Biden because he did finally disclose his opinion on packing the court. Sort of. We'll talk about that when we come back. Yeah, I personally don't shoot. I have taken a class on it. Orthodox Jews held a massive protest in Brooklyn on Wednesday night, rallying against COVID-19 restrictions enacted by New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, while also showing strong support for President Donald Trump by holding a rally. And I want you to take a listen to this. So they are celebrating. It was a very festive event, but it was because on Sunday, Mayor Bill de Blasio proposed new shutdowns of all non-essential businesses and schools in 9 zip codes in an effort to tackle the rising number of coronavirus cases. The order introduces new restrictions in the areas with the highest concentration of COVID cases, and a lot of those these major restrictions included houses of worship. They can be at 25% capacity, a 10 people maximum. Mass gatherings are prohibited. Businesses, only the essentials open. Dining's takeout only. Schools are closed. Remote studying only. So these restrictions go into effect for a minimum of 14 days. But areas that have large populations of Orthodox Jews were declared these red zones by Cuomo, shutting down their businesses, their schools, and then putting very heavy restrictions on their places of worship. So they went to go protest these measures. So the police attempted to forcefully break up the large group of people that were celebrating. The demonstrators, who were mostly maskless and not practicing social distancing, they burned a huge pile of face masks on Tuesday. And we also have a clip of one of them. Let's play that.
Andrew Cuomo targeted the Jewish community with the new restrictions, and what is the message the Jewish community wants to send tonight?
The message is very simple. We have seen packed airplanes. We have seen looting, rioters, protests, and the mayor and the governor said we have to give them sympathy, we have to allow it, and all of a sudden the hypocrisy to the Jewish community, closing religious sites like synagogues and House of God is disrespectful and unacceptable. There's no way that on an airplane there can be 350 people crowded and there can be looting and rioting and protesting without masks. And the mayor and the governor says we have to give them sympathy. All of a sudden there's zero sympathy for the Jewish community, and we have to close houses of God and worship and churches. It does not make sense to anybody.
So a lot of the people that were wearing face masks were wearing Pence face masks in support of them. So like he said, they're arguing their community is being unfairly punished because Cuomo and de Blasio, they were supportive of the Black Lives Matter protests and thousands of people getting together then, and that was totally fine. But, if they're wanting to celebrate a holiday or if the Orthodox Jewish community wants to get together and worship, they're saying, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that. Do you think things like this are helping Trump get reelected?
Hands down. Hands down. You look at certain community of folks, they are seeing how unfair this is. When their livelihoods have to be either put on pause or completely derailed. And then other organizations, other groups get to do the complete opposite of what they are lecturing you. And I'm glad people are finally connecting the dots like I had been doing back in March, trying to understand why it was okay to get together here, but not okay to get together here. There's no rhyme or reason. This isn't about science or anything like that. And then when you consider the fact that they will be way more lenient to these groups that support particular causes, of course you realize how bogus this is. And then you're like, okay, at least the president, it seems to be against a lot of these lockdowns. So they're going to go and support. These people are so oblivious that they don't realize that they are pushing support over to him. And this is why all Trump has to do is keep hammering that home. He doesn't have to even go out of his way to take those shots. All he has to be is basically not them, because they are ruining people's lives. How do you lock people down, halfway open it up, and then lock them down again because you saw some rising cases, which is going to be an inevitable thing that's going to happen? So I'm glad that there's organizations. I'm glad that there's groups. And I hated this because I did see Cuomo giving some conference about this, and then he tries to pull the whole Jewish card because he knows obviously he's impacting them, and then he tries to refer to like scripture or what have you. I despise it when people do that, because they do that. You get atheists do this with Christians all the time when they want to sort of appeal to like the gospel when it is convenient to them. Well, Jesus would do this or this and that, even though they'd hate him and say that he didn't exist and all kinds of things, any other attempt. And it was very disgusting that he would try to appeal to that when it came to, because he knows obviously that it's going to impact them. But I'm glad to see the organizations are fighting back against it.
Oh, that's so true. I relate to so much what you said just now. I've had those exact conversations where an atheist is like, yeah, but what would Jesus do? He would wear a mask. I'm like, you don't even believe in Jesus. Exactly. Why are you telling me about something? You don't even whatever. But I really think that, these governors and things like that think the people are stupid, and they're making their lives suck. They're putting all these things and being like, look, Trump's doing this, because then even Kamala Harris and the things going, oh, all these people have lost their livelihoods, and does this whole sad sob story where you go, yes, they have lost their livelihoods because of your governors, not ours, not Trump's things. Trump's out there and he takes his mask off to greet everyone and they hemorrhage and lose their mind. Right. It's like but people I think are actually certainly waking up and cottoning on to going, I'm looking at Trump, he's not wearing a mask, he's sort of doing this, he battled coronavirus for like 48 hours. Is he really the one putting all these restrictions in? They're trying to make people hate Trump, but I really think it is people are like, something's not right, and you can smell it.
Well, and I think something other people are questioning too is why won't Biden or Kamala Harris answer the question on whether they will pack the court, right? Well, he was asked again this week to explain whether he's in favor of packing the U.S. Supreme Court with additional justices if he wins the presidency. And he finally gave somewhat of an answer. So let's take a listen.
Look, some of you have covered international politics before. The rest of the world's looking at us. It's an embarrassment. It's a pure embarrassment. Gotta stop. They'll know my opinion of court packing when the election is over. Now look, I know it's a great question, and I don't blame you for asking it. But you know, the moment I answer that question, the headline in every one of your papers will be about that. Other than focusing on what's happening now. The election has begun. There's never been a court appointment once an election has begun.
So people keep asking Biden and asking Kamala, will you pack the court? Are you in favor of this? And they keep saying, let's not get distracted. Let's focus on right now. Let's focus on what's happening at this moment. But they just will not give a direct answer. So do you think by them not saying it all, that's definitely we're going to pack the court?
Of course, because he basically admits it, because he's saying it would be the headline. The only way it would be a headline like that is if you were going to do it. If you said no, then there's nothing else to discuss, because you're basically going off of the default, what already is. But if you say you are going to pack the court, of course there's going to be headlines everywhere. So he, to me, admitted that that's the case. Of course, he'll dance around it. He'll run around it, because I don't think that maybe will help his case. But look, when it comes to the Supreme Court, really anything, these guys don't want to play by any sort of rules. If they lose, they are going to try to find other ways that they can obtain that particular power. It doesn't matter what it is. It's not even anything unique to the Supreme Court. It's just that's how they operate. It's like, well, we lost, therefore we got to find ways to chip at the other aspects of whatever it is that we're talking about. It could be the main election. They want to get rid of the Electoral College and all of these sorts of ideas, because they come out, they lose. Now, if it was a benefit in them, of course that wouldn't be the case. But that's how they operate with generally anything. They would do that because they feel like, well, if he appoints if he appoints a new Supreme Court justice and we have less power, then we got to figure out a way to get that back in some way, shape, or form. That's just how they operate with everything. It's not just this.
So why do you think they're afraid to say it? I mean, don't you think a lot of people would have respect if he would just come out and say, yes, we do plan to pack the court?
Oh, 100%. I think, well, first of all, I think everyone sort of knows that it's actually a race between Kamala and Trump and not Joe, because we can see what's sort of happening behind the scenes there. But anyone who votes for Trump will know exactly what they're voting for. They know the nominee, the justice that they're going to get. They know his policies. They've seen him in action they know exactly what they're getting with Trump. With Biden, how many years? 47 years he's been here, and we don't know a single thing of his plans. That, like, we're going to vote on the unknown of this old man who can't speak, who's standing a million miles away from the woman who's running with, when I'm sure they traveled in the exact same plane. It just, like, blows my mind. And he's saying, I'm not going to tell you because it's going to be the frontline news. Yes, that's a really important thing that a lot of people want to know. They want to know, who are the judges going to be over their country? And if I elect you, who am I also electing as a judge? That's what people want to know.
Absolutely.
So of course it's going to be headline news, because it is headline news. People want to know. This is going to be one of the things that people will decide whether they're going to vote on you or not. So don't give people, oh, you'll find out. Maybe if you vote for me. It's like,
that's insane.
We want a straight answer, Joe.
Yeah.
No more games, and not after the election. We want it now.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we got to go to break. We'll be back in just a minute. Yeah, it's funny how many different ways they've tried to dance around answering the question. And it's like, at some point, I mean, even Jake Tapper was like, okay. A lot of us use Yelp. It's a website and an app that rates businesses so you can find out who has the best customer service, things like that. Well, now Yelp will place a new business accused of racist behavior alert on their page to inform users, along with a link to a news article where they can learn more about the incident if a business has been accused. So essentially, if there's some sort of public attention that a business has gotten for accused racist behavior, and they can be accused by anyone who was a consumer of that business, Yelp will flag it so that when you read about that business, it shows that it's been accused. They will open up an investigation and then allow the business to respond before they take the alert down. So they are saying that they understand the desire to warn others about racist behavior associated with a business. So all the reviews on Yelp, they must reflect an actual firsthand consumer experience. So they said between May 26th and September 30th, they've placed more than 450 alerts on business pages that were either accused of or the target of racist behavior related to the Black Lives Matter movement. Gosh, is this a smart idea, or is this just a way to target businesses and potentially take them down?
Oh, it's a stupid idea. Make no mistake, because definitely the concept or the term racism doesn't even mean anything these days, and people are trying to just throw it out frivolously. I don't like the idea of accusing someone, allowing someone to be accused of, and then flagging them, and then having, they got to fight it after the fact in order for us to take down this notice. That seems very irresponsible. If anything, you'd think that the approach would be, let's verify the claims first and foremost, and it has to be stone cold proof before that is something that is going to be put on there. But this is going to be abused definitely by certain people who want to take down businesses, or want to take down certain people. They find out the owner, the manager, or someone has a particular political slant. And that's what ends up happening. So I think this is going to certainly backfire. And I hope more so people just don't take it seriously, as opposed to, taking it seriously. Just say, look, they got a notice on there, whatever.
Mm-hmm. As if small businesses haven't already suffered enough at the hands of Black Lives Matter, burning them to the ground and making them bored. And then we've got coronavirus and all this sort of stuff. So we've already got small businesses suffering. And now you want to do this where we know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be like 100 million Jesse Smollets out there. They hit me with a sandwich and then they said, this is MAGA country. Like, get out of here. Like, I'm not going to serve you. You live, you snowflake. Or, like, we know exactly what's going to happen. And I mean, are we still going through trial with Jesse? And it's so ridiculous.
Right.
So everyone knows what's going to happen. Well, it's ridiculous.
It's sad because so many businesses now, I mean, that's the only way that you get new customers for a lot of them is through these online reviews. So that's all right. On a lighter note, if you haven't decided what you want to be for Halloween this year, I've got a suggestion. Yandy, they make Halloween costumes every year that usually make the news because they're kind of salacious or funny. Anyway, this is probably going to be the 2020 Halloween costume mascot. It is the sexy hand sanitizer. So for only $69.95, this revealing outfit with a high-hip leotard printed with fake hand sanitizer logo and a clear apron-style tutu can be yours. And they even give you like a clever pickup line. Did you disinfect from head to toe? Because you're glowing with that germ-free vibe. Ouch.
Very cringy.
I mean,
awkward.
We're all capitalists here, but thoughts on the costume?
It looks like a Dove commercial or something, like a soap commercial with that girl. I would just say, in general, the best Halloween costumes are like the ones that you made from home and like clever. But also, I think there was this girl this Asian girl band, and one of the girls was wearing a nurse costume just recently, and she's like being like slammed online for like, stop sexualizing nurses. So what I have to say is stop sexualizing hand sanitizer.
Yeah, man, I don't even know what I'm supposed to say about this. Because, like that's kind of bizarre. But yeah, I mean, I guess if someone buys it, I mean, make your money.
Well,
I mean, it's a demand for sexy hand sanitizer.
Well, they also had like a sexy ballot box costume. And also, if you are trying to keep it in very good taste and family friendly, they also came out with the new Mike Pence wig with the fly on it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I saw that.
I was amazed at how quickly they got that online. Because, it was by 8 a.m. the next morning, it was already for sale, and that was like $49.95. So if you've just got money to blow on ridiculous Halloween costumes, then I want to be your friend because I need some extra cash if you're going to spend $70 on a hand sanitizer costume. I don't know. What I thought was interesting, too, on the website, it says the cheeky look is perfect for Instagram, the only safe place to celebrate Halloween this year. As coronavirus cases continue to rise, the CDC listed many favorite traditions, such as indoor parties, hay rides, haunted houses, or trick-or-treating. Those are too high risk, apparently.
But protesting's not.
What's the point of the costume?
Yeah.
I guess you just take a picture of yourself at home and put it on Instagram, is what they're suggesting you do.
You pay $70 to take a picture, a sexy sanitizer, and nobody... Oh my God! Whatever, man. Whatever works, man. That's a stupid investment, though. I think if you purchase that, like now that I'm thinking about it, it was stupid before. I mean, sexy sanitizer, whatever. But yeah, this is no.
Now that you've thought it through, the answer is just no.
Like, wait a minute. Why would you? If you're not going anywhere, what's the point?
I agree.
What's the point?
Yeah. Yeah. Just make one at home, everybody. All right, we gotta go to break. We'll have our question of the day when we come back. Yeah, $70. I mean, there's such little material. There's no way that's $70 worth of product that you're buying. All right, we've got our results from our question yesterday, which was who won the VP debate. 96% of you said Mike Pence. I agree with 96% of you. I thought he did an awesome job. Our question for today, do you have faith that Attorney General Bill Barr will prosecute the people involved in the Russiagate hoax? Yes or no?
Man, faith in government and me is like, I'm answering no 100% of the time. No. No, absolutely
never
not.
happen.
No.
Kez, what do you think?
I will see. I'll believe it when I see it. So I hope we'll see, but also, yeah.
Yeah, we may be waiting for a long time before we actually get any results, if ever. But hey, it is 2020. The odds of it happening at this point, who knows? Crazier things have happened. So, all right, we hope you guys have a great weekend. Make your Halloween costume this weekend. Save yourself $70. Make something at home, right? But still go out and spend. Put money into the economy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what I went as for Halloween.